So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad? Where we take a look at an album that maybe got bad reviews or maybe the fan reception wasn't the best one. So, for this episode, we're talking about Radiohead. And we already covered Radiohead. We covered the first album, but now we're going to cover their last album, A Moon-Shaped Pool, which was Señorita Sabrosura's pick. So, Señorita, why did you pick this album?
Well, I remember when that album came out, I read like mixed reviews, and it was like the longest period then without putting an album. I think the previous one was The King of Limbs, and like it passed like 5 years until they put this album. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of people were like disappointed because it didn't have like a big anthems, big radio sing along songs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. And I was looking for reviews, and I didn't see like very much negative reviews on, at least according to Wikipedia. I was looking at, I'm like, I didn't see that much bad reviews, but I do remember when this album came out. So we're joined, obviously, we already know we're joined by Señorita Sabrosura, but we have back in the channel the Green Man. Tom, how are you?
Good, thanks, Hector.
Yeah, awesome. And for a second time on the show, we have Notes Reviews. Notes, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about this album.
Yeah, so yeah, you know the drill, people. We have the 3 rounds. The first round, we're gonna talk about our first impressions when we did listen to this record. Then we have the second round where we pick 3 tracks that maybe we think are the weakest, and the last round where we give our final thoughts and we say if it's a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down. So since this was Señorita Sabrosura's pick, we'll start with her. So, Señorita, your initial thoughts on when you listened to this album?
Well, I remember the first thing I listened was Burn the Witch, the first single. A friend, she knows I'm a Radiohead fan. She sent me the video for Burn the Witch with the bird, and it's like made him plasticing, like something like that. Stop animated motion, something like that. And I found it strange and weird, but me, I like weird. um and I remember like a lot of friends like told me like this is very strange, this doesn't look like Radiohead.
Look the
uh
sound.
but when the album came out, and to discover that was the opener, for me it was great because it set the mood. And for me it was a great opener, and listening to the whole album, I know you call it. Hey, let me talk. My
The
dogs
dog
are
wants to give his
excited.
opinion.
Yeah. I remember you told me you found it boring uh, at times, but for me, I find it easy on the ears, like an easy listening, but the lyrics are not easy. Um, I don't know. Like I know when it came out, I enjoy it, and now and then, but then I forgot like about it. Like it's not an album I go back, but now for this video revisit, it's like I still find it strange, but I like it.
Okay. Yeah, there's your dog saying, I got bored. So what about you, Note, your initial thoughts with this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me. Like, I very vividly remember listening to this upon release. And I mean, I loved In Rainbows. In Rainbows is one of my favorite Radiohead records. And when King of Limbs came out, I didn't know what to make of it. And to this day, I still don't know exactly what to make of King of Limbs. Like, I like half of it, and the other half, I'm like, nah. I'd rather listen to the bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather listen to like the basement take of that record rather than the actual record itself. So, like, because we're dealing with the legacy of Radiohead, the bar is always like sky high. Like the bar is always like in the clouds. But after The King of Limbs, I'm like, okay, let's bring that bar down. Like, let's reassess. Let's see where they're going for this next one. So, much like you, Senorita, I really like Burn the Witch. I really like that first single that came out. I love that Playmobil stop motion, very Wicker Man music video that they had, and it set the tone very well for what to expect. And I got excited for this record. But I feel like this record is very similar to like a vibes record where like outside of Burn the Witch, there isn't like any one particular track that really stands out to me, like on In Rainbows with 13 Step or with like OK Computer and Paranoid Android. This one is more of like just a general vibe. It's a put it on, feel the vibes. There's not like a lot of big high peaks on this one, but it's just kind of like a vibe. It's just kind of a mellow, very drifty album. So I'm still kind of like, I like it, but I wouldn't necessarily call it my favorite or even my like top 5 records from Radiohead.
Yeah, good analysis. So what about you, Thom?
Yeah, it's probably right that I'm going last because I'm not really much of a Radiohead fan, to be honest. I mean, actually, I like quite a lot of what they do, but for me, I struggle with Thom Yorke's vocals. There's just something about his. I mean, he has these very fragile sounding vocals.
I call
Actually
it
reminds me sometimes reminds me a little bit of like Neil Young in places, just with that real fragility about his delivery and singing voice and things. And I don't know, there's just something about it for me that just doesn't quite work for me with that sort of vocal style. It's this very arty album. It sort of reminded me a little bit of the sort of some of the late 60s era of Pink Floyd in places with all the different arrangements and the build-ups and the slowness and just something about it where there's lots of elements in it. It's kind of overall quite mellow as an album, like Notes was saying. It sort of just drifts along. But there's a lot of things going on, and also sort of another impression I have of this was like with the sort of drum sounds and things as well, which aren't also really for me that sort of drum machine or whatever it is that's being used for some of these songs, which I suppose creates a certain atmosphere or something. But for me, I'm not really much of a fan of that really. So obviously, I'm still going to reserve my judgment for later. But just this isn't really sort of my sort of. It sounds weird because I do like loads of arty stuff, but there's just something about this that doesn't really click with me. I think it's perhaps it doesn't feel. Maybe it's those lack of those peaks, I think, would again, picking up from what Mose was saying, it's just nothing really that brings, I think, would make me want to come back to it, although, it does have, there may be moments in it I quite like as well, so.
Nice. So that leaves me, so with Radiohead, I prefer their earlier stuff. I like guitars, I like music. I remember when Kid A came out, I hated it. I hated Kid A when it came out. A lot of people like, this is the best thing ever. I was having a conversation with Senorita the other day that Radiohead are the type of band that if they record farting sound noises, everyone would say, this is the most avant-garde thing ever. It's like Tool. Radiohead is like Tool in a way. It doesn't matter what they record. People will be like, no, this is the best thing ever. And now I think Kid A, I like it more now, but when it came out, I was really not on board with it. I did like In Rainbows, but I remember that King of Limbs record was strange, and this record when it came out, A Moonshaped Pool, I actually reviewed it for a blog, and I think I gave it like I thought it was like a strange record and too mellow for me. It sounds like almost like it would be more suited to be a Thom Yorke solo record. And it's very interesting that after this one, Radiohead hasn't released an album. They've gone to different things. And something about the sound of this album, it sounds more like the score to a movie. It has like a score sound.
Yeah.
And I like Burn the Witch, but Daydreaming, the music video is just fun. He's like walking around, and Thom Yorke has that face that you don't know if he's happy, if he's depressed, or anything, because he's always got the same stare. And that song, I don't know why, when I listen to it now, it could be used for a pharmaceutical commercial, like if your experience is this taking this pill. But yeah, it's like super sad, that song. But the album as a whole, I feel like what Note said, it doesn't have a lot of variation. It stays like in a similar like stasis for the 55 minutes, and I have to be in the mood to listen to this record. So this was an interesting one to go back for. So yeah, so those are our initial thoughts. So now we're going to round two, where we pick 3 tracks that maybe we don't think are that's great. So, Señorita, what 3 tracks did you pick?
Well, it's interesting that the Greenman said he doesn't like Thom Yorke's voice vocals, because even Thom Yorke says he doesn't like his voice, that he wish like he doesn't sing so pretty. Like so that was an interesting observation, because he has said in previous interviews, like, I wish I could sing like more rough and not so girly and pretty. And you saying also that it feels like a score, because it's interesting that then they went to do a lot of movie scores. So maybe this was like the path that they were like doing with this album. But I still like the album. Yeah, we have to be in the mood, because my only critique is like maybe it could be depressing at times, and I wish the last album of Radiohead wasn't depressing. So I'm still waiting for a new Radiohead album. If I have to be forced to pick weakest songs, or songs that I don't like that much, Daydreaming. Um, for me, it's not that I don't like it, but I found like it's too long. It drags
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it drags over like 6 minutes and a half, something like that. But I love how intriguing that song is, and I enjoyed the video. And another least favorite, that maybe I could enjoy by itself, but in the whole album, it was Desert Island Disc. I felt like the acoustic was out of place with the whole album.
Mm.
So, but I don't have 3, only those 2.
That's why Señorita never wants to do this. She's like, no, I don't want to talk badly, but like it has to be done.
Oh, but that one, like Desert Island Days, I enjoy it, but like if you put it in the whole album, I felt out of place the acoustic with the rest of the songs. And I
Okay.
found strange that they put it like in alphabetical order to the songs.
It is in alphabetical order. Yeah.
And Jonny Greenwood said that they did that because it makes sense the flow, but no, it's strange.
Or maybe they were just tired. They said, let's do it in alphabetical order. What about you, Notes? What songs stood
Yeah,
out
this
negatively?
this was hard, right? Because like since it's the double-edged sword of nothing being better than the others, right? Because of that, there's no song that I feel is like really weaker than all the others. So trying to find 3 that I could say were like the lower points on this record were really, really difficult, because anytime I thought, oh, maybe this one is a weaker one, Radiohead has this really beautiful way of developing their songs, and I always like to call it like a blooming of the song, especially on this, where it's not this big explosion, it's not this big like crescendo, it's like this flower that's slowly opening up to become something very, very beautiful. So tracks like Daydreaming, which originally was on my 3, I actually like the longer runtime of that track, and I love how it develops and how it grows and how it like moves around within the elements of this track. But I mean, that being said, like I love it, but I could see why people would think that it's a weaker track. And much like Senorita, I think my one really track that I didn't really like was Desert Island Disc. Um, you know, I like how it starts off very small with just the acoustic guitar and then it slowly develops, but the common theme for these tracks that I'm not a big fan of is that they don't add anything to the album. They don't develop any of the ideas. They don't move things forward. And I felt like Desert Island Disc didn't really do that. And similarly, I mean, I listen to Spotify, and the track that has the least amount of listens to is Tinker, Sailor, Soldier, Sailor, Rich Man, Poor Man, Beggar Man, Thief, which is a heck of a mouthful to try to say. But again, I feel as if this track is kind of boring without any kind of development. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't move. It just kind of continues to meander on the groove that it set down at the beginning. And once again, much like Desert Island Disc, it doesn't add anything to the album itself. It just kind of meanders. So I guess, you know,
Like
if I had to pick,
Yeah.
exactly. And anytime I tried to pick a third one, like even Identitic, I like how it develops and the numbers. I love how that develops. So I guess just through process of elimination, maybe Daydreaming, the same kind of reason that you know, that was kind of mentioned before. But yeah, the two for sure is Desert Island Disc and Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Sailor, Rich Man, Poor Man, Beggar Man, Thief.
That's just a mouthful. Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like some I don't know, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album titles,
Oh
you
my
know, it's
God.
like lungs, death, mushrooms, lava, and
Yeah.
it's
That's a
ridiculous.
band we gotta cover sometime because some of their albums are good, but some of
Love.
their albums are there's some good, but there's some that I just don't understand. I'm like, how can a band put like 5 records in 1 year?
Oh, I love them. I absolutely love them. I would be happy to talk about King Giz.
Yeah, I wouldn't know which album to pick.
Oh, Polygon Wonderland. That's the one that I always point out to everybody. It's their best.
Yeah, we'll do that for a future episode. So, what about you, Tom? What 3 tracks did you pick?
Yeah, this was pretty difficult as well for me. I think I went with Desert Island Disc as well on my list because although I appreciate somewhat the acoustic guitar, it doesn't do enough really. It's the same for me. It's just the same line over and over again, pretty much. And something I find with this album is because the foundations of a lot of the songs that they're sort of overlaying, I don't find that interesting in and of themselves. I feel like unless they really do powerful developments or good developments, that I really struggle with a lot of the songs here. And I think that that's an example of one of those particular songs. Identikit for me, I quite liked the middle bit with the vocal arrangement. I built the build up of that. I thought that was good, but it's still one of my least favorite. There was this kind of, I just found this sort of weird, very sort of thin sounding guitar that came in and just felt like an odd contrast with the other part of the song, the other elements in it. I feel like, I don't know, it sounded a little bit experimental, and like some people will probably love that element of the track, I suspect. But for me, it didn't really work. So Identikit would be another choice. And I actually wrote down Dex Dark, but I can't remember much about it. But maybe that justifies why I picked it.
Maybe it's because a lot of the songs kind of sound similar.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that good 3 choices. So for me, I actually like Daydreaming. I don't know. I think it's a strong track. Even though it's depressing as hell, like with the like those vocals.
But you say it could be for a commercial for depression.
Not only a commercial. When I was listening to that track, I remember. Have you all seen that meme of Kermit the Frog looking outside at the rain?
Yeah.
I thought of that meme. That's the perfect song for Kermit the Frog looking at the rain.
Right.
But the music video is great. You know, Tom is walking around, and I just love his facial expressions, because I would love to talk to him to see if I could get some expressions out of him. He's like the same. I don't know what you're feeling, man.
Well, if you see him live, his face.
Oh,
changes.
because you've seen them with the smile.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, which is the other band that he has now. A pretty cool band, by the way. So to me, I would say I think everyone picked Desert Island Disc because it just doesn't do anything. It's not that I would say that it's offensive, and I've talked a lot of really bad albums on this series. It's just doesn't do anything for the. It's just there, and it doesn't do anything for me. I also picked that Tinker Tailor Sailor Soldier whatever. I just think it simmers for too long, and it's not as interesting as Daydreaming, in my opinion. And it's almost at the end of the record, so you're like kind of like, oh, come on, hurry up, finish this. So
I think that title was inspired by a movie, something like that. I read.
oh, with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Yeah, great movie, by the way. And
a movie based in a book too.
I was gonna say, yeah, based on a book.
And the other one that I picked, I also picked Dex Dark, because I think from after Daydreaming, Dex Dark and Desert Island Disc kind of like bring it down a little bit. So those are the 3 tracks that I would pick are the weakest in this one. So now we're going to the third and final round where we both thumbs up, thumbs sideways, down, and we give our final thoughts. So, Señorita, defend this.
Well, for me, this album is a slow burn, but a good slow burn. It's something that requires your patience and requires an attentive listening, and listening more than once. I like that they blend a lot of songs from their previous work from all their albums, but they also blend songs from their side projects, and like a lot of the songs on this album, they're from previous songs they wrote before. Like, for example, True Love Waits was a song they released in 1995.
They played live, but they never had actually released it.
Recorded on an album, yeah. But I like how they reward the songs for this album because they were different also. Like True Love Waits was just an acoustic guitar, and I like here how it's in a piano. For me, I like this album. It's strange, but like I say, I like strange and weird. So for me, it's a thumbs up.
Okay, nice. So what about you, Notes?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I will get into a mood where I'll want to listen to this record, but if I'm just going to sit down and listen to a record that is similar to this, like I think that they've done this style of music better on past releases. Like I would much rather listen to Kid A or Amnesia, and I think Amnesia is probably the closest similarity to this. At least with Amnesia, they have like Knives Out and some like really banger tracks on there, and like the working of one of the tracks from Kid A. So I think I would much rather return to those records, but I will still get into a mood where I want to listen to this very singular sound. As I mentioned, it's not their best album by far, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a bad album. So for me, I'm kind of wavering in here. You know, for a lot of other bands, this would probably be like their best album. But for Radiohead,
It was Coldplay.
Yeah, well, and actually, I was just thinking that, like, Coldplay put out a very similar album to this called Ghost Stories. And at least with Ghost Stories, there was this big crescendo at the end. And I think that is what this album is missing. It's missing that one singular big oomph of a track right around the end point to tie this whole thing together. So out of the two, I'd honestly rather listen to Ghost Stories. And I know that might sound, you know, sacrilegious. But I don't know. There's something about Ghost Stories that I love, and that's a very good comparison because the two came out around the same time. But yeah, for me, it's here. You know, it's not the best, but it's nowhere near the worst.
Yeah, good one. So, what about you, Thom?
Yeah, I mean, I liked. There was a track here that I felt really got my attention and made me almost start to sort of veer towards enjoying the album a bit more. And I think it was Full Stop with the 1L on the full. And I liked the sort of the trippiness of that. I felt it had, you know, it felt like a part of the album where they were doing something a little bit different from the rest of the more super mellow yet busy sound of the album. And I enjoyed that particularly. It's sort of trippy and psychedelic, and I think that's what I was getting at earlier when I mentioned the late 60s sort of ness. I think I was maybe thinking more of that particular song than a lot of the other parts of the album. I think I get what Señorita's saying, though, that it does definitely require patience, this, and I haven't had a lot of time with this album, in truth. You know, this was me prepping this for this episode pretty much over the last week, so I've not had a lot of time with it, and it's definitely an album that I can sense it needs more time. But that aside, I mean, I didn't feel that this is just not really being a Radiohead person. It's hard to sort of separate that from really getting into getting into them a lot more and appreciating maybe an album like this, just because I know that I'm just never really kind of they're just one of those bands, you know, everyone does videos, bands they can't get into, and I think Radiohead are a little bit one of mine, although I mean, Kid A, I actually don't mind. And the Pablo Honey record that we did on this series as well, didn't we? I think
we talked about Pablo
Honey
with Shoegazer 93.
And I quite like that. But for me, I think it's a thumb sideways as well. For me, I can't really say that this is an album I particularly enjoy, but I can sort of appreciate it a little bit for its artiness. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an honest answer, man. That's why I picked you, because I know you're not like a huge Radiohead fan. And for me with Radiohead, it's you know, Radiohead is like Tool. Like the fan base can be like very like divisive, and I like more Radiohead when they have guitars and stuff like that. It's more my cup of tea. But this is an album that, you know, like I hadn't listened to this since it came out. I just remember the two singles, Burn the Witch and Daydreaming, because it made me think of a pharmaceutical commercial. But besides those tracks, I couldn't remember anything from it. And but Thom Yorke, you said something about his voice. It's like Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins. You have to be in the mood, because some people hate Billy Corgan's vocals, and I love them, but it's the type of vocals that you either love or hate. And Thom Yorke, you know, it's like his vocals sometimes are like thin and things like that. But the album, I think, you know, it has some beautiful things to it, but would I want to listen to this all the time? No, I have to be in the mood, and I have to be honest, sometimes I get bored with some of the tracks. But I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's also not, I wouldn't put it like in the top 5 albums of Radiohead career, because I was reading some people saying that it's their best album. Like, hello, a computer? Like to me, that's still their best album, because with OK Computer, to me, they mix the best of experimental with rock. And that, to me, that's their best record, in my opinion, like my favorite from them. But I would say Thumb Sideways as well. You know, it's got enough good things to say. I couldn't say it's bad, you know, because it's not bad. You know, it's the production is great. You know, they really know how to this album. It feels melancholic and depressive, and if that's what they were going for, congratulations, you did it, man. Like, you got me there. Like, just think of Kermit the Frog watching the rain, and that's the sound of this record. So we want to know from you, Couchers, what do you think of A Moon-Shaped Pool by Radiohead? How would you like rank it in their discography? What are your favorite tracks and least favorite tracks from this record? And, you know, just tell us what you think of this record. And comment below. We're definitely gonna do a Coldplay album, because there's a bands that I like the first album, but then they kind of lost me. So it's interesting. I even have a friend that had a controversial take. He always, I remember we were in New York City. We were talking about like Radiohead and stuff, and he said, to me, Coldplay is 10 times better than Radiohead. And I was like, whoa, like,
I don't know about that. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Coldplay gets a bad rap, and I love Coldplay, but I wouldn't say they're 10 times better than Radiohead.
Yeah, I know
Absolutely
when he
not.
said that, I'm like, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, but I'll do a poll with Coldplay records to see which people would like to talk about them because it would be interesting. I think I'm not gonna pick the first free ones because I like them, so I'll pick the lesser
Oh,
known.
if you do, I will talk endlessly about Viva La Vida. It's my favorite from them.
Viva la Vida. I only remember one song from that one, so
Oh, I love that record.
oh,
I
So
love
good.
that record too.
okay.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
It's so
indifferent
good.
to it. So, but I'll revisit it for you guys. So, so I want to thank, my panel, Señorita. Thank you for doing this program for the third time because
Yeah.
I have to drag you to do an Is It That Bad episode.
I don't like to talk about albums or bands.
Yeah, I do sometimes.
Sometimes.
but respectfully. But
Yeah.
so if you want, you just as long as it's tasteful and respectful, and you have points because just saying it sucks because it sucks, like, come on, why do you think?
Why do you think it sucks?
yeah.
Yes.
So people subscribe to Señorita Sabrosura. Coming up next on her channel, we're going to be doing that's already going to be aired when this premieres, but we
Yes.
an episode for the Killers, for the Hot Fuzz, who's that's
Anniversary.
20 years old. And do you have any more of your vinyl videos?
Yes. I'm not sure what we're gonna talk about this weekend, but we're doing one video this weekend. We're talking more Sabrosura recommendations.
With your husband?
Yes.
Yeah.
With
And his name is not Mr. Sabroso, okay?
El Duderino, El Duderino.
El Duderino, yeah. So that's what will coming up for Señorita. And also, where can they buy your merch?
For now, Instagram at Sabrosura Creativa. Yeah, find me on Instagram.
Awesome. So, and if you haven't checked out Notes Reviews, his channel is great. Like we've done a few album reviews in common because you talked about Wheel the other day, which I thought the same thing as you. I want to like them, but it's too much Tool. Like,
Yeah,
come on, it almost sounds like a Tool cover band. Give me more. So I can't get past through that because they're talented, but I get that.
absolutely.
And he has some great reviews on his channel, and he talks like progressive, like alternative, like the Lemon Twigs, not Twins. I gotta check out that record.
Yeah, that's a great record.
Yeah. So subscribe to his channel. And finally, Thom the Green Man. If you like horror, if you like fantasy, if you like symphonic metal and shoegaze, Thom talks about all of those things in one channel. And and he's very respectful because he's British. You're always very proper, man. So subscribe to his channel. And finally, obviously, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. The channel has been growing very rapidly, so I thank you to all the new subscribers that I'm getting, and I have more interviews on the way, and more album reviews coming on the way. There's a few new bands that I interviewed that I'm pretty excited. So if you're watching this, I interviewed a band called Hippo Tractor, and they're a progressive metal band from Belgium. The album's called Stasis. I think Nose, you would dig them. It's coming out. It's pretty cool band. If you like Meshuggah, if you like textures, check out that band. And also, I interviewed the band Oh Hiroshima, which is an amazing post-rock band from Sweden. Their new album that comes out on June 28th, I've already listened to it, and it's amazing. So that interview is coming up this Tuesday, so check for that one out. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all next time on another episode of Is It That Bad? Thank you and goodbye.